Well, wait. So you're telling me Auburn may have 3 potential first-round draft picks?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. And thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up with the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, on today's edition of the show. Another mega recruiting weekend for the Auburn Tigers, and maybe one of my favorite, probably my second favorite player in this class, taking an OV to the Tigers this weekend. We'll talk about him and some other guys that hopefully Auburn can make a solid impression for. But just as of like yesterday morning, there's been this influx of hype and attention. It's like all of these NFL draft scouts and writers have a group text, and they're like, "Have y'all watched Xavier Chaplin?" And they're all like, "Oh yeah, he's really good. Let's move him up our list." There's a shot now, Darrell, according to mock drafts and folks who cover the NFL draft, that Auburn may have 3 first-round draft picks on this year's roster, with Xavier Chaplin at left tackle, Eric Singleton at wide receiver, and of course Keldrick Faulk on the defensive line.
Incredible. When you go from the absolute dry spell that Auburn's had getting guys in the first round, if you go from that to 3 in the first round, it obviously has to equate to production on the field if that happens. I mean, this is where it translates. This is where it absolutely transfers. If it doesn't, there's a huge issue. I am not surprised at all by the Chaplin love. When the announcement came out that he was transferring to Auburn, you and I were very excited. He was the number 1 offensive tackle in the class.
Mm-hmm.
I just am surprised that he went from the number 1 portal guy, which a lot of people had even over Singleton overall, to potential top 15 draft pick. And so it begs the question, would that be the case if he was still at Virginia Tech? If this mock draft came out and he was still at Virginia Tech, I wonder if he would still be considered the 12th overall pick. Is it because he's moving to the SEC and they feel like Auburn has some talent to heighten his exposure a little bit?
Possibly. I mean, the NFL has shown that if they think you're an elite offensive tackle, they don't care where you play. But obviously, it makes it feel like that's a little bit safer. I think that's why Will Campbell was drafted where he was, because they were able to look past, the arm length, because he's like, well, he was at LSU. He was great. He was great. He went up against all these first round guys. So clearly it didn't matter. Matt Zenitz, we'll start with his report. And this came out in a tweet from his account, Matt Zenitz. I was just saying, hey, Xavier Chaplin, Keldrick Faulk and Eric Singleton aren't the only players with a shot to be first round picks next year. He talks about Xavier Chaplin. And in the graphic, says Xavier Chaplin is generating early NFL buzz after transferring to Auburn. Scouts say he could be the top transfer in the country compared to Cowboys first rounder Tyler Guyton. Just let me tell you what. We'll go through the order of a mock draft that came out in a second. We talked about this last week when we talked about the top end of the roster, where it's like, these are my top 5 guys. Here's my 6. You put Chaplin in your top 5, and clearly these guys agree with you. If Xavier Chaplin is a first-round pick and Auburn does not win at least 9 games, something went wrong.
Oh, I totally agree, because out of those 3 names you mentioned, 2 are along what we consider to be the most important aspect or component of a football team, and that's along the lines of scrimmage. If Auburn has a defensive lineman and an offensive lineman go in the first round along the lines of scrimmage, and you have guys like Cam Coleman who can't come out yet, Singleton will probably go in the first round, the secondary Auburn's supposed to have, buckle up. I mean, but then again, it can be an indictment too. And I'm going to think positively on this. I'm not even going to.
No, there's a negative side of this too.
But there's a negative side, and there are people that'll jump on this. I've already seen it in some message boards and other things that
they're not wrong though.
And then Auburn Auburn will win 7 games. And if Auburn wins 7 games with this kind of talent, then it's a coaching thing.
But we've said this before, like going into year 3, we will know we will undoubtedly know, unless they get plagued by injuries, Darrell, there are circumstances that could happen. But most cases, we will know one way or the other on if this is going to work or not, because clearly the talent is there. Nobody's pushing back on that. Hugh Freeze cannot use that as a crutch or a defense anymore at press conferences. You can't do it. And especially if you're being, with not really having a whole lot of film at your current school outside of Keldrick. I mean, obviously Eric Singleton doesn't. Obviously Xavier Chaplin doesn't at their current school. To be able to attract first round buzz going into the season, you've got the talent. And you said, we're not talking about Cam Coleman. We're not talking about Connor Lew. We're not talking about Jay Crawford, who will be an NFL corner. We're not talking about Caleb Harris, who is one of the more effective freshmen in all of college football because he's not drafted yet.
Riddick.
Yeah, DeMarcus Riddick, who's one of the more physically gifted humans playing college football right now. And there's more, right? There's more guys, but we're talking about just the true top end guys who are being projected to be first round picks now. If you can't win, we'll know. Like, dang it, this stinks. Like, no one wins in that situation except for the folks who are, Hugh Freeze haters or Auburn haters. But goodness gracious, to your point, we will know one way or the other. So CBS Sports' Ryan Wilson put out a mock draft. And I'm not entirely shocked that Chaplin is getting first round buzz. I thought that some people would be hesitant to give him buzz because we heard a lot of NFL draft buzz around Percy Lewis this time a year ago. But that did happen. We didn't just make up that hype out of thin air. But in this mock, he has Keldrick Faulk going 28th to the Lions, which would be an awesome fit for Keldrick. And then Eric Singleton going to the Buffalo Bills, which would be an incredible fit for Eric. But they have Chaplin going way before both of them. They have Chaplin going 12th overall to my New England Patriots. And I place it a right tackle in that spot, right? Because they just drafted Will Campbell, but that'd be incredible. But to me, if Xavier Chaplin is the 12th pick in the NFL draft next year, Auburn better be dang good and have a much better offense than they have in a hot minute.
Two things. First of all, the Percy Lewis point that you made, a good one. We just never heard, even out at SEC Media Days when there was a potential Senior Bowl invite, that it was top 15 pick. It was just first two rounds. Remember, I was excited to say it was second round, that we were going to have an offensive tackle, or Auburn's going to have an offensive tackle.
I think it was Navy, right, with the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
That was talking about.
We never heard first round buzz, though, and I think that's the difference. Number two,
sure.
I think the code has been cracked here. All spring, I have been outwardly saying to you, what is the basis? What is the data? What is the reasoning behind all these publications? National, I mean, we're talking about around the gamut, ESPN, FPI, On3. Why are these people putting Auburn in the top 20? Why? Now we know.
Talent.
Because if the correlation or the symbiotic relationship between having three guys drafted in the first round doesn't equate to a top 20 finish, something's wrong. So now I'm seeing the method to the madness. There's a lot of people out there that cover this sport, NFL and college and PFF, that says Auburn could have three and should have three first-round guys. If you have three first-round guys on your roster, you should win at least 9 or 10 games, therefore being in the top 15.
And I'm just thinking from the perspective of Jackson Arnold, right? If you have a potential first-round left tackle, one of the first centers that'll probably get drafted next year with Connor Lew, Cam Coleman's not a part of draft discussion because of age. Malcolm Simmons, not a part of draft discussions because of age. And then Eric Singleton. What else can you ask for?
Absolutely. Okay, so for people to understand the significance of this, Auburn hasn't had three or more guys drafted in the first round since 2004. And that team was historically good. You had Carlos Rogers, Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, Jason Campbell. I am not saying that this team is on that level, but I am saying that this team dang well better win more than 5 games if you have 3 potential first-round draft picks, period.
Yeah, and it also just confirms the discussion that you and I talked about late last week of, okay, who are the top 5/6 players on this roster? The talent at the top of the roster is the best that it's been at Auburn in a long, long time, which is great. Now go win football games. And
I think it only will elevate, what is that? The high tide raises all boats argument. It will elevate the running back room, Jackson Arnold and Cam Coleman's game, and the linebackers in the secondary. When you have that type of talent on those in those positions, others around them will get elevated. And then what happens when other people start to play at a higher level? That's when you can have a potential season. Potential special season.
Sure. Rising tide raises all ships, I think is what it is.
I say boats just because a ship is so heavy, but yeah, I get it.
Okay, that's fine.
I think of I always say boats, but it's probably ships. I just think of a big old ship,
Sure. We got to keep acquiring talent. And the next step of that is nailing it this weekend. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Man, do we love Game Time. I used Game Time last week, Darrell, to go to the Super Regional. Took my dad. It was kind of an early Father's Day thing. It was a ton of fun. So if you want to go see a Braves game with some family members or whatever, it's cheaper now than it probably has been in a hot minute.
Probably equivalent to a Pittsburgh Pirate ticket, if I had to guess.
Probably not quite there, but still, Game Time's got you covered. You can see your exact view from your seat. You can toggle the all-in pricing, which is what I always do, so I know exactly what I'm going to pay. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We say this all the time. We've said it for the last few months, but a loaded weekend expected for official visitors for the Auburn Tigers. And let's start with the guys who are already committed, because I think it's important.
Well, I also we probably need to touch on one or two that showed up on campus yesterday. Because you and others
have you want to go that way?
Let's go that way, because there's a key guy that was on campus yesterday.
Tristan Keys?
Yes. You like that. You get me. Like in that movie, Jerry Maguire.
Sure. No. Tristan Keys is fantastic.
Tristan Keys,
I mean, pretty much agreed upon. He's one of, if not the best receiver in this class. I'd put him in the category, and I've talked about this with a bunch of dudes, that I think genuinely like Auburn. I just don't know if he believes fully in what they're doing. And so could he be a flip candidate down the road? Maybe. I feel like if Auburn would have won more games in the past few years, it would have helped guys like Tristan Keys, and you can add him to that long list. Committed to LSU. I think he ends up at LSU when it's all said and done. But the fact that you get a guy like Tristan Keys in, it's always a good thing.
I think that Auburn's going to have to show, and what we just talked about, if that happens and these guys become first rounders and Auburn has a special season. If you remember, Auburn's greatest recruiting coups at the wide receiver position have been flips, except for Thompson,
except for
and Coleman. Yeah, and Coleman were flips.
Bryce Kane was pretty straightforward, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I'm not ready to completely say that ship sailed. I agree with you. More than likely, the percentages say he stays.
You said ship there.
Yeah.
Why not boat?
Because the expression has never been that boat's sailed. It's always been that ship has sailed. Yeah.
I'm just asking questions here.
In the comments, people will back that up too. That ship has sailed. I just think that
the saying was a rising tide raises all ships.
I thought it was, the saying is officially a rising tide rises all boats. But
you may be right on this.
That I stand corrected. I just have a hard time seeing a gigantic, big old ship like the Titanic rising with the tide. You see what I'm saying? But you're probably right. I mean,
No, it looks like it's boats. I've always said ships. You are the saying's daddy today.
And it is that ship has sailed. I know that.
I'm not pushing back on that one. 100% agree there.
So the Tristan Keys thing's interesting. I think if Auburn has a good season, if they have two 1,000-yard receivers,
right?
I'm just not ready to throw in the towel on that one. But him being on campus yesterday to me is a big deal. So
Caden Prothrow took an
nice
OV too.
Yeah, nice tight end. Tight end.
6'6", 210, super athletic. I don't know Auburn's chances for him either. I know they've been in it. I don't think he picks the Tigers.
Can I make a confession right now that I'll probably get scolded for, but I'm going to go ahead and get this off my chest?
Go ahead. Sure.
As we look at these recruiting lists and we look at visits, why is it that I'm less and less excited, or maybe not, just kind of it's become ho-hum or second nature that I don't get as excited about the secondary guys? You see what I'm saying? My focus doesn't go on them. My excitement level doesn't go on them. I look at tight ends and receivers and offensive linemen. Auburn has such a glutton of safeties and corners that come in, and they've done such a great job inking signatures. I just don't get as excited about them as I used to.
Yeah, sure. I think recruiting represents hope and excitement for the future. And I think we're already there. Like, I think we've already arrived when we talk about the corners and the defensive backs. Because I'm kind of there with receiver to some extent too, where it's like, yes, you need to always stockpile and load up talent for sure. That's what the great programs have done. You need elite corners, even though you already have elite corners. You need more elite receivers, even though you already have elite receivers. But I'm with you. Like, I get more excited about, the stuff that's not currently elite, right? Because I think it represents hope and excitement for the future.
Exactly. And I'm not downplaying Auburn getting talented guys in the secondary. It's just become a little bit second nature that they recruit them, they get them in here, and they perform. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it goes from, let's get these kids on campus. Oh, yeah, this kid signed. Oh, my gosh, Crawford and Lee have made significant impacts as a freshman. So it becomes commonplace where we haven't seen that along the offensive lines.
You're like, Blake Woodby is, outperforming.
Exactly.
Oh, Donovan Starr doesn't look like a freshman. It's like,
Fagans is worth all the hype that, but you're right to the point of seeing that a receiver now, right? Simmons and Coleman. And so I want to see that at other positions. I definitely would love to see that as a freshman running back. Nothing would make me more excited to see someone like Alvin Henderson come in, break through, get significant carries, and show out as a freshman.
Yeah, I don't think that's the craziest thing that could happen either. I mean, I think Alvin is perfectly capable of doing that. He'll get the opportunity. We'll see what he does with it. Anybody else from the OVs that started yesterday that you wanted to touch on, or was it just mainly Keys?
Just Keys.
Okay, got it. I like Travis Stevenson. He's a corner. He's a 3-star corner committed to Georgia Tech currently. The little bit of tape I've watched of him, I like him as well. So, but once again, like, we've got a lot of corners, but we've done a great job of identifying and scouting them. And this is another guy that, maybe they're committed to Georgia Tech like a Sam Turner was. And it's like, hey, this offer packs a little bit more of a punch. You're underrated. We believe in you. Come to the SEC, not the ACC. I don't know. We'll see. That recruitment feels kind of similar to me. So we'll see. Okay. Auburn needs to focus on, obviously, one of the best guys in this class, in my opinion, best guy in the state, but also needs to focus on the guys who are still currently committed. That's next right here on Locked On Auburn. Major weekend for the Auburn Tigers this weekend. So Devin Carter, the receiver from Douglasville, who's committed to Auburn. Then obviously Shadarius Toutel, the linebacker who's from Mobile, been committed to Auburn for a minute as well. You got to make those guys feel like they're priorities this weekend. Wilt Fong put in a prediction for Toutel to flip, and that surprised a lot of Auburn people that I'm close to, including people that know the Toutel family. And I think if Auburn wants to keep the commitment of Shadarius Toutel, I think that commitment will be won or lost this weekend.
Yeah, I've heard he's still firm with Auburn, but Auburn is looking to shut this down and close this down, seal the deal this week, where he either stops taking visits or these other speculation of he could flip. All that narrative goes out the window. And I think they're hoping to do that with this visit. And I think it gets done by what you're saying is that old adage that you never leave a current customer to go out and find a new one. That whole thing with you
were such a business savant.
Well, it's so what happens sometimes in recruiting is guys that you've already got committed might not get as much attention or as much love as the ones you're courting, right? They come in. And I think what you said is a very, very key thing. You cannot do that. You cannot fall in that trap. Yes, you want to show the C.D. Morgans and the Crowells a lot of love, but it better not be any more love than the ones that have already decided to commit to you.
You need to get Shadarius Toutel to look at all the other schools calling him and say, Toodaloo.
Toodaloo. Yes.
Devin Carter, similar situation. He visited North Carolina recently, but it seems like I think FSU is kind of the other one that is tempting him the most. So,
well, he put out a cryptic tweet where he said, I want to go where needed, not wanted. Did I get that right, or did I get it backwards?
No, he wants to go where he's needed, not where he's wanted. And I don't really know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. I don't know if that means that Auburn's so freaking stacked in the receiver room that they want him, but he's not a desperation need like he would be or may have been sold in Florida State. But I can tell you right now, I know somebody that is at Florida State that got recruited to play receiver at Florida State, and it is a mess over there with NIL and so there's some things going on over there that, I think that maybe the desperation is we've got to get this kid from a Florida State standpoint, and that's what he's sensing.
Yeah, so I took that tweet as like he could feel needed here. He also could not feel needed here, but
if you read that tweet, you better, if you're Auburn staff, pivot and put out the aura of, my God, we need you. You're not a luxury. You are a necessity. And that's where, like, getting his name right on the placards at the table would help.
If we misspell Devin Carter, I'm going to lose my, what?
But you can. That's good that he put that out there ahead of this visit, because it gives you the answers to the test ahead of time. You just make him feel like, God, we got to have you.
Yeah, but also, like, just to push back on that, I would say that if you haven't already done that, it might be too late.
Well, you do that before the kid commits, but sometimes you have a tendency to take a breath and relax and don't pursue as much. Again, I don't want to do a bunch of analogies, but we've always been told, date your wife like you did when you were dating her and not married. Show that same attention, show that same urgency. It's the same thing. Just because you got this kid to say yes and commit to you, treat him with the highest priority, just as if you were still courting him to become an Auburn Tiger.
Yeah, there's a lot of other guys visiting this weekend. We'll touch on them more tomorrow with Brian Smith. But Shadarius Morgan, he's announcing his commitment on July 2nd. More and more people are predicting Alabama for him. It seems like Alabama is trending. And this is the one that's going to hurt me anyway. Like, I am such a believer in Shadarius Morgan, the 5-star receiver from Alexander City. I think he is incredible. And he's visiting this weekend, and I hope Auburn, explains how the rev share is going to benefit him, explain how he can have any part of the offense that he wants. Whatever C.D. Morgan wants, Auburn needs to make it abundantly clear that he can have it if he comes to the Plains.
It would hurt me, especially because he comes from Alexander City, which is traditionally Auburn country. Benjamin Russell, where Malcolm Simmons came from.
Yeah.
You would think that there is that linear kind of relationship there, but it doesn't matter. The state is the state as far as recruiting. So if you ask me, am I higher on Shadarius Morgan than I am Tristan Keys? It's a toss up, But I think you get Morgan. The value of getting Morgan is so great because of being an in-state kid.
Well, it's also the dynamic of like, I'd rather lose a recruiting battle
to
LSU than I would Alabama,
especially
in-state. Yes,
and a Mississippi kid, from Hattiesburg, where Keys is from. So.
Right, yeah, losing a talented Mississippi State or Mississippi kid to Ole Miss or Mississippi State or LSU feels different than losing a guy who's like 30 minutes from you, for sure. 100% agree. So, CD Morgan, I hope you have the best time this weekend. Darrell Dapprich, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP6410. You can follow me on Instagram as well, Darrell Dapp. And then I'm with you Wednesdays and Fridays. And also live Sunday nights, 8 o'clock with you and Kyle Rush.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. And if you're listening on audio, please leave us a review. Helps the show out a ton. Make sure you're subscribed there as well. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.